I'm telling you, Joe, that's a stepladder.
No, it's just a ladder, Barack. Putting redundant modifiers before words doesn't make you sound as smart as you think.
They're two totally different objects, Joe.
No, they're not. You step on both of them, don't you?
Stepladders are self-supporting, unlike regular ladders, which must be propped against a vertical plane.
They're both used for the same purpose, and you step on both of them. You just need to stop judging things based on narrow-minded cultural assumptions.
The hell does that even mean?
I saw my name pinged like a dozen times. What are you retards arguing about?
Donald, is this a ladder or a stepladder?
Come again?
Joe swears it's a regular ladder, but come on, that's clearly a stepladder, right?
I don't have time for this bullshit.
Hey, Donald, I thought of another idea for an obscure topic we could cover.
Well, if it's about discussing ladders, I'm not interested.
No, of course not. I thought we could do a tier list on movies and shows that we all watched in school.
Did they even have movies when you were in school?
Oh, ha. You're a real riot, Donnie.
Yeah, and so are his supporters. Anyway, Joe, while I appreciate the effort to come up with a topic, I doubt our audience would be at all familiar with anything we grew up watching in class.
Oh, like you're suddenly beyond discussing obscure crap no one ever thinks about?
Well, we could always just search up popular shows and movies that are commonly shown in classrooms nowadays.
We could, but on the other hand...
Please don't say what I think you're gonna say.
What's the harm in us attending K through 12 again?
Oh, Jesus Christ, Barry!
What the fuck, Barack? I'm not doing the 7th grade again.
Oh, lighten up, you two! It'll be fun!
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to experience all that Common Core bullshit and those school lunches prepared by Michelle Obama I missed out on as a kid. This'll be a fucking blast!
Guys, I heard she banned ice cream from every cafeteria she stepped foot in. Do you think I'll be okay?
Considering we'd have to be at it for 13 years, I honestly doubt you'll even live to see graduation, Joe.
Man, stop being so melodramatic. I promise it'll be worth it.
Eventually.
Oh, thank God that's over.
Tell me about it. That valedictory speech was some hot garbage.
How much of that is just you being ass hurt that you didn't make top of the class?
Yeah, only because those stupid nerdy clubs Ron attended counted as free 100s towards his GPA. All 3 of them. It's unbelievable.
So how come you didn't attend any?
I was too busy tutoring Joe.
Wow, what an incredible waste of your time. Where is he anyway?
Probably sleeping in. I didn't see him at the ceremony this morning.
Me neither. Never thought I'd say this, but it looks like Joe made the smart decision.
Afternoon, fellas.
Hi, Joe.
Everything okay, Barry?
He's still mad about DeSanctimonious snatching the valedictory award from him.
Wait, the graduation ceremony was today? Why didn't you guys fucking wake me?
Joe, you should consider yourself lucky. You didn't miss anything.
Not true. I pants Jeb.
Of course you did.
Fucking idiot, forgot to wear a belt. He was asking for it.
Well, hate to break it to you, Barry, but I'm not about to attend K through 12 a 3rd time just so I can attend your graduation speech.
Don't worry about it, Joe.
Which reminds me, why did we do this again?
Fuck.
Are you kidding me, Barack?
Just give me some time. I'll remember it.
Oh, time? How's 13 years sound? Is that going to be enough time for you, Mr. Smarty Pants?
You're not helping, Donald.
Mr. So fucking smart, I should have been valedictorian but lost to Ron Caesar DeSantis and his wannabe Roman Legion of Dungeons and Dragons nerds.
All right, here it is. We prepared a tier list for films and movies that we all watched during our time at school.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, I knew that all along. I just wanted to see if you guys did too.
Sure you did, Donald. We better jump right in before we get any older.
Hey, speaking of, why didn't we age during all that time spent
And for the record, this is only going to cover stuff commonly shown in American schools. So apologies in advance for not covering whatever secondhand garbage your school from Durkistan could afford.
Be nice, Donald. Also, sorry if your favorite film or show doesn't make our tier list. There's only so many things we've seen, and even less that we remember.
Guys, come on, this is starting to freak me out.
First up is the 1954 animated version of Animal Farm.
An all-time classic fable that warns against the dangers of communism. Easy A tier, maybe even S tier, but I'm sure you pinko clowns are gonna want to put it low.
Well, I don't know if it should be low, but it's certainly not good enough for the top.
It's at the bottom for sure. Man, I couldn't stand this one. It's basically 70 straight minutes of animals being brutalized with no light at the end of the tunnel. And I mean that literally. The film is so needlessly dark to the point of being gratuitous. Boxer working himself to death, those evil fucking dogs, and the design of some of these characters just spook the hell out of me. Jones looks like a hungover Dan backslide, and the way he's animated is so unnerving. Also, good Lord, there's only so many times a man can listen to Beasts of England in one sitting, and when the score isn't playing iterations of it all throughout the film, the animals themselves bellow it out in what look and sound like demon summoning rituals.
Jones is a fucking lush, Joe. Of course he walks a little funny. An Animal Farm is a bleak story to begin with, so your complaints about the film being dark are meaningless. As for Beasts of England, just be glad it doesn't hold true to the book and have the animals sing it like a dozen times in a row for hours on end.
I'm with Joe on this one. The story is dark for sure, but this film feels more focused on showing you these animals suffering than it does getting on with the story.
The original story is all about animals suffering, you idiots. What were you expecting to see?
I'm glad you brought up the original story, Donald, because that leads me into another problem I have, which is the ending. The film changes it so the animals rise up against the pigs, yet it doesn't feel satisfying at all. Napoleon is built up to be such a despicable character, so you'd hope his death would be really cathartic, but they don't even have the courtesy to show it on screen. And there's no resolution at the end, or what becomes of Animal Farm after the pigs are overthrown. It's just a pointless change that does nothing other than slightly soften the film's tone.
Okay, yeah, the ending is kind of lame, but you'd be complaining about how dark it is if they kept it faithful to the book.
Most of us read the book as opposed to watching the movie in school, which seems like it was for the better. I guess I should give it credit that it doesn't rely too much on narration and makes the wise choice in keeping it a cartoon as opposed to trying for a more realistic approach. But in my opinion, Animal Farm is a story best told through reading.
Such bullshit!
Unfaithful ending aside, this is a pretty decent adaptation. All things considered, I really can't say I was too surprised by its tone, since we all know that Animal Farm is a pretty grim story at its core. But a lot of scenes are downright tedious with how deliberate they are at making the animals suffer. Not exactly a fun watch, but I can work with B tier.
Put it in D tier. That scene with the chicken rebellion and show trial made me lose sleep for days. Those goddamn demon dogs even maul the cat on screen. It's horrific.
It's not that bad, Joe. I'll compromise on C tier.
God, you communist pigs make me sick!
Oh, calm your tits, Donald. Why don't we talk about something we can all agree on?
Such as?
How about Schoolhouse Rock?
Easy S tier.
S tier all the way, baby!
That's what I thought. Let's talk about why.
This series is a perfect marriage of quality education with catchy-ass songs, and it's a time-tested model for all educational material going forward. Really no surprise that most subsequent material falls short of this because it's just that fucking good.
I still remember the songs to this very day. Bob Doro absolutely nailed it with this project. Unlike the vast majority of so-called educational entertainment that litters the school curriculum, Schoolhouse Rock feels genuine and not the least bit forced. Seriously, I don't think there's ever been another piece of edutainment that all the students demanded to watch a second time.
You guys are so right. One aspect that I feel goes unmentioned is how Schoolhouse Rock has universal appeal across the board. Your age, interests, background, and even diligence as a student don't matter because everyone is united in loving this series to death.
Damn, that's so true, Barack. Even the kids who said they hated musicals loved this series and actually sang along with the rest of the class. Can you believe that?
Wow, that's amazing. Teachers could probably end truancy permanently just by promising to show this series on a regular basis.
God, just talking about this series makes me want to break out into song and dance.
Same here. Is it even possible to not tap your foot along to Conjunction Junction?
No, it fucking isn't. Not even my teachers could help themselves.
I'm with you all the way, fellas, but we'll have to save it for later. Moving on, we have my personal addition to the list, Osmosis Jones.
This movie is the poster child for things you saw in your childhood that you thought were a fever dream, only to pop up years later. Everyone I knew in school had the same personal experience, but none of us knew what the movie was called until we saw it in science class.
Kind of unsettling how accurate that take is. As for the movie itself, its quality is kind of all over the place. While the animated segments are vibrant, clever, and a joy to watch, the live action scenes really drag the whole thing down to the point of feeling like two very different movies competing for screen time. The live action parts aren't unwatchable, but they're way less engaging and creative. Dull is the best word that comes to mind.
I'd argue that's inevitable given the film's premise. A fictionalized universe that takes place inside Bill Murray's body. Of course, the cartoon world is going to be more imaginative than real life.
Speaking of, I gotta say, aside from the fact this movie has a black guy voicing a white blood cell, the casting is top-notch. Chris Rock as the cocky, wisecracking lead, Lawrence Fishburne as the suave, badass villain, William Shatner as the incompetent, corrupt mayor, and man, they really did a good job of making Bill Murray look and act as gross as possible for this role.
I'm with you there, Donald. I also really like the attention to detail with this world. The ulcer repair signs, the sperm statue, and the eye floaters in the optical feed, just to name a few.
Yeah, when it applies itself, Osmosis Jones is downright brilliant. The only problem is that its brilliance is far from consistent. I wouldn't go so far to say that its low moments are bad, just kind of lame and stupid.
If it was allowed to keep its more mature rating, it would have been better for sure. Also, though I doubt it was ever supposed to be the main focus, the plot really isn't anything too special either.
Honestly, most of the live-action stuff seems like an afterthought, plot included. It resolves way too quickly, and a lot of threads are left unaddressed as a result. But that's probably for the best, since no one cares enough about these scenes to want to see a well-thought-out ending.
It's a textbook example of a mixed bag, albeit one that undoubtedly leaves a strong impression. Does B tier sound good?
Sure.
I was going to say C tier, but that's okay.
All right then. While we're on the topic of fictional depictions of the human body, let's talk about the Magic School Bus.
A fucking classic. In the same vein as Schoolhouse Rock, Magic School Bus is a masterful achievement that blends education with entertainment while never feeling forced or disingenuous.
I just love how this show got everyone so eager to learn. Even the roughest and toughest kids who thought they were too cool for school couldn't help but turn their heads whenever the teacher put this one on. Magic School Bus really does bring a special kind of energy to the classroom that most education shows only dream of having.
I think a large part of that is because of Ms. Frizzle. Her approach to teaching by encouraging the kids to figure out problems for themselves as opposed to just spelling everything out for them is exactly how students get engaged with and become passionate about learning in real life. She's a role model for teachers across the nation and my favorite character by a mile.
Wow, you're telling me your favorite character isn't the producer?
He's my second favorite, albeit a distant second. Honestly, I love how his segments just serve to clarify the unscientific aspects of the show to kids watching at home, yet they manage to make them funny and self-aware.
My favorite character is Carlos the illegal alien.
Very classy, Donald.
My favorite character is...
Shh, no one wants to hear you drool over the little girls, Joe. Let's just slap this masterpiece into S tier and move on.
If we were ranking shows in a vacuum, I'd agree with S tier. However, let's remember that we're considering these shows and movies in the context of a classroom screening. Though Magic School Bus is very entertaining and informative, sometimes the episodes get a little bogged down with their plots, and it can feel like filler.
Oh, that's such bullshit, Barry. The characters may not be that deep or complex, but they're all likable, and we still enjoy seeing them overcome whatever differences they have.
You're absolutely right, Joe. Expecting kids to sit through half an hour of uninterrupted scientific concepts being spewed at them with no rhyme or reason is asking too much of them. It's a cartoon, not a documentary. S tier, and that's final.
I'll leave it hovering in between S and A tier for now, if it'll make you stop complaining.
It won't, but I agree with moving on.
Okay, what do we think about Super Size Me?
Absolute trash. This movie is fake news propaganda and hardly qualifies for this tier list. We need to add an F tier right away so we can properly accommodate this dumpster fire.
Oh, you're such a lame-ass bitch, Donald. Just because it speaks truth to power about your beloved fast food slop doesn't mean it's bad.
Truth, Barry?
Joe, back me up here. I'm clearly not going to get Donnie the Hut over here to say anything nice about this movie. What did you like about it?
Oh, me? I guess the soundtrack is good. I also just like documentaries in general, and as far as they go, it's competent enough at getting its point across. Plus, it's not as though this one is without a sense of humor. I honestly busted a gut when that one little kid mistook Jesus for George Bush.
Okay, I'll admit that was pretty funny.
I also kind of like how this movie is a time capsule for comfy early 2000s nostalgia. Seeing the old McDonald's buildings really hits different watching it nowadays.
That's true, but it's also a double-edged sword. Popping it in these days is more likely to make me pissed knowing that Big Macs used to sell for less than $1 and that the supersize option is no more. That amount of food would cost a fortune today.
They discontinued it because this film exposed them for mongering literal fucking poison.
You're talking out of your ass, Obama. This movie accomplished nothing. The obesity epidemic has only gotten worse. The fast food market is still a $100 billion industry, and its foods aren't any healthier than they were 20 years ago. If this movie accomplished anything, all it did was make fast food companies rebrand their image to superficially appear more health conscious without actually making their food more healthful.
He's not wrong, Barack. That's pretty much what the sequel is all about.
But the nail in the coffin for why this movie belongs in F tier beyond a shadow of a doubt is that it's built on lies. In 2017, Morgan Spurlock all but admitted that he was drinking throughout his experiment, which explains why he was in such poor health throughout the picture.
Dang, I didn't even know that. Barack, that's pretty egregious.
That's upsetting to hear, but it doesn't change the fact that the fast food industry has a completely negative influence on society. I was going to rank this one B tier, but if Donald really is telling the truth about the faked results of the experiment, I'm willing to put it lower. What do you think, Joe?
I originally had this in C tier. I may enjoy watching it every once in a while, but it really isn't that deep in terms of educational content. I'm pretty sure the main reason why it's even on this list at all is it was one of the first movies to be made available for free on YouTube. Taking the fake results of the experiment into account, I say D tier.
F tier. This movie has Jared fucking Fogle portrayed as a voice of reason. That's got to be one of the most poorly aged cameos in history.
Oh yeah, and Morgan's girlfriend also got on my nerves.
Fucking facts, Joe. She has to shove her vegan propaganda down our throats in every scene she's in. And when she's not doing that, she's talking about Morgan's dick and how his burger binge is keeping him from getting it up.
Okay, fine. D tier. You've twisted my arm enough to put it at the bottom, but it has enough redeeming qualities to not warrant creating an F tier. Happy?
What do you think, Barry?
Would it make you feel better if we talked about the film or show you picked out?
No, thank you, but since you're asking me, I'd rather save my movie for last.
So be it. Joe, why don't we talk about your movie?
Okay, my movie of choice for this tier list is March of the Penguins.
Ooh, solid choice, Joe.
Yeah, I agree. Can't believe this one slipped my mind while making the list. This is about as perfect as any nature documentary can get. Stellar camera work, an interesting and absorbing subject, and cream of the crop narration by the goat of goats, Morgan Freeman.
He alone makes this S tier in my opinion, but even beyond that, there really isn't anything wrong with this movie. Every step of the way, you're rooting for the Penguins, just hoping that enough of them make it out okay in the end. And every time it seems like nature will give them a well-deserved break, it turns around and dashes their hopes to pieces. They really do have the hearts of champions.
I absolutely adore the shots in this movie. The cinematography captures the isolated and alien nature of Antarctica to a fucking T. And the landscape has an uncanny beauty that I can only describe as otherworldly. Even during the underwater sequences, you really feel like you're on a different planet, watching the penguins endure their lot in life.
One underappreciated aspect I really like is how their lifestyle is compared to that of religious pilgrims. It's a metaphor so perfect, it's almost too good to be true, and it adds an extra layer of spirituality that makes an already wholly captivating movie that much more fascinating.
Phenomenal shooting, top-shelf narration, gripping premise, great score. Is there anything you guys dislike?
Well, since this movie gives a brutally honest depiction of what happens in Antarctica, it does inevitably have its tearjerker moments when the chicks die prematurely.
Only if you're a second grade girl. The fact that this movie makes future Hillary supporters upset is enough to catapult this masterpiece straight to the top.
Well, I wouldn't put it that way, but I agree that it should be at the top. Moreover, Donald, I think this refutes your earlier point about kids not being able to sit through several uninterrupted minutes of documentary-style narration. I won't deny that Magic School Bus is more kid-centric from the ground up, but you have to admit that its sluggish pace is more noticeable as you get older, which simply isn't the case for March of the Penguins.
As much as I hate to admit it, he's got a point, Donald. Magic School Bus might be peak nostalgia, but it's just not as enjoyable to watch as an adult.
All right, fine. You've made your point. Put it in A tier.
Glad we got that resolved. Moving on to another movie with a focus on animals, we have Charlotte's Web.
Which one? The live-action one with Dakota Fanning?
No, it's the 1973 cartoon by Hanna-Barbera. I may have liked the book, but boy does this movie drag at times. Even though it's only 94 minutes long, it feels way too slow. And I'd like to contribute that to the absurd amount of filler it has.
Half of said filler is probably from the cavalcade of unnecessary musical numbers. I won't say that any of the songs are bad, but they go on for far too long and don't contribute to the plot in any way whatsoever. Like, seriously, why does Wilbur learning to talk warrant a song? For that matter, what's the point of even making him unable to talk to begin with? It's a pointless development that the movie just pulls out of its ass for no reason except to kill time.
Oh, I don't know about that, Donald. While some songs are definitely more of a waste of time than others, I can't help but appreciate the one that Charlotte sings about how special we all are to be a part of life's eternal run, even if it is for a brief moment in time. I don't know, man. It just gives me a strange existential pause that seems way too profound for a simple kid's movie, but funnily enough, it sums up the lesson of the book in such a sweet and poetic way. Death is inevitable, and rather than spend the best parts of our lives dreading it, we should instead celebrate our time here on Earth. Sometimes existence may seem cruel, but we are all lucky to play a part in reality, no matter how small our roles may seem. Time will reduce us all to dust one day, but we have each other in this brief snapshot in time, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Joe, that was beautiful.
Anyway, Charlotte's Web is C tier. Occasionally it captures the book's existential themes, but most of the time it just feels like a lame Saturday morning cartoon with the same level of animation quality to boot. And I may like that one song, but this story has so little reason to be a musical that I'd honestly rather read the book again than watch this. I've never seen the live-action version, but it's automatically better if it's not a musical.
It's not, and the score was done by Danny Elfman. I agree with C tier. There's nothing offensively bad about Charlotte's Web, But we all know that the only reason why it's shown in class at all is because said class is most likely reading the book as part of the curriculum.
Honestly, I see less of a reason for it to exist than the film version of Animal Farm, so I'll put it below that. Okay, looks like Bill Nye the Science Guy is next. Easiest S tier of my life.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess so.
What's your fucking problem, Donald?
Look, this show is great and everything, really, but I can't help but get a bad taste in my mouth rewatching it, knowing that it spawned the most insufferable science-worshipping troglodytes to crawl the earth.
Skill issue, Donald.
Yeah, sounds like a big fat fucking skill issue. Regardless of how annoying its fanboys can be, you can't deny this show's effectiveness at teaching kids scientific concepts.
Amen. You brought this up earlier, Barack, but I think in the same way that March of the Penguins really captures your imagination by showing you real-life footage of nature, Bill Nye is inherently better at grabbing your attention than Magic School Bus because it shows you the scientific principles applied in real life. That's just always going to be more awe-inspiring than watching it in cartoon form.
Well said, Joe. In addition to this being live action, Bill Nye himself is such a likable dork. He's got that same kooky energy as Steve Irwin or the Krat brothers from Zoboomafoo that's just so damn infectious. He's like that absent-minded professor we all wish we had. I should know, I met the guy.
But he's not even a real scientist.
What's your point, Donald? Were you also disappointed to learn that Ian McKellen isn't a real wizard?
That's a terrible comparison, and you know it.
Well, I kind of was.
Shut up, Joe. Putting aside your petty political baggage, Donald, where do you rank Bill Nye objectively?
S tier, of course. There's really nothing to complain about with this series. Like you guys said, it's extremely well executed with a fast enough pace and variety of settings to keep a young audience's attention for an extended period of time. And brushing up on the science even as an adult is just as interesting as it was learning about it as a kid.
If you were just going to say S tier, why didn't you save us some time instead of being a whiny little bitch?
Just take the S tier and move on before I change my mind, Joe. I swear I can't win with you fools sometimes.
Okay, Donald, we're at the end. As promised, I've saved your movie for last, so the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my film of choice for this tier list is Mel Gibson's The Patriot.
Oh, nice one.
Huge W, Donnie.
I know, right? Seriously. Where do I begin with this one? From the touching story to the badass fights, to the endearing characters, to the badass fights, to the absolute stud that is Mel Gibson himself, Patriot is probably not an objective 10 out of 10, but I'll be goddamned if I don't say it's one of the most satisfying films I've ever seen. Did I mention the badass fights?
I agree. The action sequences were very enjoyable. They're the perfect length. There's the right amount of space in between them, and they're just violent enough to be thrilling but not gratuitous. I think you hit the nail on the head with the word satisfying.
Dude, the fight where he takes his sons with him to get Heath Ledger back was so fucking wizard.
Man of culture, Joe. That scene was one of my favorites.
Let's not forget the final battle either. Jason Isaacs as Colonel Tavington was such a smug bastard. He made Lucius Malfoy seem like a well-mannered guy by comparison. I honestly wanted Mel Gibson to kill him in that prisoner exchange scene, but saving it for the very end was well worth the wait.
America, fuck yeah.
That does bring me to my only issue with the movie. It's not the most historically accurate film in the world, and to that end, I think the Redcoats being portrayed as heartless killers is kind of unfair to the British.
Joe, just because you were alive to witness the events of this film firsthand doesn't mean it has to be 100% accurate to your memory. Also, let's get something straight. The fact this movie pissed off a bunch of rotten-toothed bean-eating bongs is a good thing.
Take it easy, Donald. Joe, I know this movie uses a major historical event as its backdrop, but it's a movie first and foremost. It's allowed to use some embellishment in order to make the story more epic.
So if it's a movie first and education second, does it go in A tier?
I'll actually be giving it an S tier. It's the only R-rated movie sanctioned by a classroom that I can think of. You have to admit, that's really unique.
Thanks for proving you're not too far gone as a dirty communist pig, Barack.
Whatever, Donald.
Joe, as U.S. presidents, we are honor-bound to put the Patriot into S tier. By refusing to do so, you're admitting you're not really president and that the 2020 election was indeed rigged.
Okay, fine, S tier.
That's what I thought, you sleepy son of a bitch.
On that note, it looks like we're done. Looking at our list, I'm surprised to see how fondly we remember most of these. As much of a mixed bag the whole K-12 experience was, it's nice to know that at least the shows and movies we saw were good, for the most part.
This list could have gone on and on, but yeah, looking at what we've covered, it's more W's than L's for sure.
Thank God for that, because there's still ample time for me to set up for tonight's graduation party. You guys are coming, right?
Sure am.
It's not like I have anything better to do.
Groovy. I'll expect you two at my doorstep by 4:30 sharp. That'll give you plenty of time to doll yourselves up. Donald out.
What does he mean by doll ourselves up?
His party is going to be Family Guy themed.
So what?
So put on your bathrobe and go buy a bunch of popsicles, Herbert.
Ooh, popsicles. Great idea, Barry. See you there.
Like and subscribe, fam!